Welcome back to the Explainer. So, when most of us hear phrases like onboarding or first day, we instantly picture this totally dry administrative checklist, right? You know the drill, signing a mountain of forms, trying to locate the break room, skimming through a giant manual. But here's the thing. A simple onboarding checklist is actually the secret engine driving successful caregiving agencies. It's not just paperwork. It's a vital, empathy-driven management philosophy. Literally, it is the very first touchpoint where you prove to your new hire, without a shadow of a doubt, that they made the right choice joining your team. Let's dive into how we can transform day one from a tedious administrative hurdle into an absolute launchpad for success. All right, let's get right into the thick of it. The research boils the entire first day experience down to two drastically different paths. On one side, your caregiver walks out the door feeling confident, supported, and motivated. On the flip side, we've got a caregiver leaving their first shift feeling totally confused and overwhelmed. And honestly, there really isn't much middle ground here. The stakes for day one are incredibly high. If they feel confused and overwhelmed, you're instantly fighting an uphill battle against burnout and turnover. But if you hit the mark, if you make them feel confident, supported, and motivated, you're building long-term loyalty from the very first hour. Every single action you take on day one is pushing your new hire toward one of these two emotional states. Which brings us to section 1, the essential checklist. Exactly what to cover on day one to avoid that overwhelm. But before we actually look at the lift itself, you might be wondering, what actually guarantees a confident start? I want you to think about your own first day at any job you've ever had. Confidence doesn't just magically appear because you found out where the coffee machine is or where they hide the good pens. No way. It comes from knowing exactly how things work and knowing for sure that someone has your back. So let's reveal what the material says you absolutely need to cover to guarantee that confident start. Okay, look at how logically we can group these items into a carefully structured safety net. Right at the top, we have the agency, mission, and values. And look, this isn't just corporate fluff, it's your ultimate why. Below that, we move right into the core rules and standards. We're talking communication rules, documentation expectations, and client interaction standards. Laying these out crystal clear on day one, it completely removes the guesswork. A caregiver shouldn't have to guess how to document a client status or the right way to speak to a family member. Guesswork creates anxiety, but Clarity creates confidence. Finally, at the bottom of our list, emergency protocols, the scheduling process, and who to contact for help. These are your ultimate support systems. You're basically looking the caregiver in the eye and saying, hey, when things go wrong, here is exactly what you do, and here is exactly who's going to help you. By combining those clear rules with robust support systems, you literally eliminate the conditions that cause confusion. Now let's shift gears a bit to section 2, best practices for success, the nuance of execution. Because how you deliver this info is just as important as what you deliver. The absolute first best practice here is to keep your instructions simple and structured. We really have to keep the concept of cognitive load in mind. On day one, a new hire is taking in new faces, new locations, new software, and totally new responsibilities. Their brain is working in absolute overdrive. If you just throw a massive, unstructured wall of information at them, you're practically guaranteeing that exact overwhelm we are trying so desperately to avoid. So break things down. Use clear, manageable steps. Simple, structured instructions act like a filter, allowing your caregiver to actually absorb and retain the critical stuff without their brain short-circuiting. Now, no matter how simple and beautifully structured your verbal instructions are, a new caregiver is simply not going to memorize everything on day one. They just aren't. Providing written guides gives them a much-needed safety blanket. Think about it. When they're out in the field on day 3 and suddenly draw a total blank on those documentation expectations, they don't have to panic. They don't have to feel incompetent. They can just pull out the written guide, review those complex rules on their own time, and proceed with complete confidence. Written guides are essentially an ongoing support system that extends your first day training well into the rest of their first week. You also absolutely have to allow questions. Onboarding should never, ever be a one-way lecture. I mean, if an agency manager just talks at a new hire for 4 straight hours, that person is going to feel like just another cog in a machine. Creating a deliberate, open space for a two-way dialogue fundamentally shifts that dynamic. It shows the caregiver that their understanding actually matters to you. It fosters that deep, crucial feeling of being supported. When you pause and genuinely invite questions, you're essentially telling them, hey, we're in this together, and it is totally okay if you don't know everything yet. And that naturally builds right into one of the most powerful strategies on the list. Assign a mentor caregiver if possible. This specific point is absolutely brilliant for building immediate peer-level confidence. Let's be honest, management can be a little intimidating, right? A new hire might be totally afraid to ask the manager a question because they think it sounds silly. But a mentor, a peer who does the exact same job, that provides a safe, low-stakes sounding board. Plus, it gives the new hire a crystal clear lifeline for that who-to-contact requirement we talked about earlier. A mentor bridges the gap between the formal agency rules and the actual reality of the day-to-day work. It proves to the new hire that they aren't just taking a job, they're joining a true team. Moving on to Section 3, Rethinking First Impressions. The paradigm shift. Because here's the true paradigm shift. First impressions don't just apply to clients. They apply to employees too. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. In the caregiving industry, we will bend over backwards to make a flawless first impression on a new client or their family. We roll out the red carpet. But how often do we bring that exact same level of white glove, premium hospitality to a new employee walking through the door on day one? The stakes of employee impressions are incredibly high. If you want your caregivers to treat your clients with the utmost care, patience, and respect, you have to model that exact behavior for the caregivers from the very moment they say yes to the job. Your onboarding process is your agency's first impression. It tells the employee, plain and simple, exactly how much you value them. So, I'll leave you with this. Is your day one creating confident caregivers? Look at your current process through the lens of everything we've explored in this explainer today. Are you just checking off administrative boxes, or are you executing an empathetic, structured plan that guarantees a new hire feels supported, motivated, and deeply confident? I challenge you to really evaluate your onboarding process this week. Make the necessary tweaks, because when you get day one right, you don't just get a new employee. You build a dedicated foundation for your entire agency's success. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.